Thanks for joining us on the program this evening, everyone. Imo State government has announced commitment to implement recommendations of the National Judicial Council regarding the appointment of an acting chief judge for the state. We're also looking at the local government tribunal rulings in Benue State, which has now continued to elicit reactions as stakeholders call for NJC intervention. You can join the conversation right now on X if you use the hashtag Beyond the Headlines. Remember to tag at TVC News NJ. Let's begin with an update from Imo State, where the government there has announced its commitment to implementing the recommendations of the National Judicial Council regarding the appointment of an acting chief judge for the state. At its 108th meeting, the NJC directed Governor Uzodinma to immediately appoint the most senior judge in Imo State as an acting chief judge, in line with Section 271, subsection 4 of the Constitution. This comes after the governor attempted to swear in Justice Theophilus Ezeuko, a move the NJC has now declared unconstitutional. Justice Ezeuko and the president of Imo's customary court of appeal, Justice V. Okore, have been given 7 days to explain why they shouldn't face disciplinary action for their roles in the controversial appointment. Meanwhile, the NJC has suspended 3 judges for 1 year without pay, including Justice Jane Yang of the Court of Appeal, accused of issuing improper ex parte orders, and Justice Eyangeko of the Federal High Court, who delivered a ruling without hearing parties in the case. The NJC also announced a major transparency reform. Names of judicial appointees will now be published for public scrutiny before confirmation, a move aimed at curbing corruption and nepotism in the judiciary. I'm joined by Executive Editor of TVC, Ladende, in the studio with me. Very interesting development in Imo State. We broke the news yesterday that the government said it will go by NJC's recommendation. We've covered stories like this in the past. It happened in Benue as well, where there are controversies as to the role of the National Judicial Council, which is supposed to do the recommendation, which the governor now, needs to act on. Why do you think we continue to see this rift when it comes to appointing a chief judge?
Okay, let me start by putting on the cassock of a politician. There's a way they react to stories like this. We hear them say it is victory for democracy. It's the victory for separation of powers. It's a victory for the fact that the judiciary can stand on its own and take its constitutional role, and think that's what played out. And it's to let the executive know that the judiciary has its role, and you cannot usurp their role. And for the fact that the governor also complied, it's a wonderful thing. It's something to celebrate. Otherwise, we will be having a constitutional crisis where actions carried out by the not qualified head of the judiciary in Imo State taking decisions, because the NJC has gone as far as even saying that they need to also answer to queries. They need to answer why they were involved in this whole unconstitutional move. I think this is good. This is something that we could also see in the case of Benue State, where Benue too also complied with the decision of the NJC. And this is to let us see the beauty of the separation of power, that when they have to intermingle, when they have to commingle, when they have to do things together, you must know where your boundary stops. You must know when NJC has a higher say in this whole matter, because a lot of people are used to the negatives. They have continued to say that the judiciary is in the pocket of the executive without taking records like this, where we see the judiciary having the final say on this matter. I think the big lesson is for politicians to realize that you may always have a desire, you may always have a preferred candidate, but it should not be to the detriment of the structure. It should not be to the detriment of the laid down rules. You must, in fact, in democracy, we believe that the rule of law is supreme, not the people in power. And that's one of the things that Oji Uzokali was also saying yesterday where he was, that, listen, this is not about Bola Tinubu. This is not about demarketing Nigeria because you don't like the man in the hem of power. It is about the fact that Bola Tinubu, maximum 2031, he will leave that position. Which country will you hold on to? What are the positives that you can market to the investors outside the country? So for me, I think that we should celebrate this decision. And the Imo State governor, we are also tracking him to be sure that he's going to give the right support, the budgetary allocation to the arm of government to really function optimally, irrespective of whether this is their choice or not.
Well, I think it is obvious why governors will have personal interest as to who emerges into these offices. But like you said, there are laid down rules and regulations that they must follow. We've also seen the NJC now suspending 3 judges for 1 year without pay, and the issues have to do with improper ex parte orders. You know, but ex parte has been experting us for years. I mean, where courts of equal jurisdiction come up with different rulings on the same matter, and the NJC keeps suspending, keeps pronouncing, but nothing has changed. Perhaps, do you think that they are not wielding the big stick enough to inspire deterrence in this regard?
Okay, wielding the big stick has different measurements now. Maybe this is a bit bigger than what has been done before. 1 year without pay is quite big, maybe not big enough, because I think you're looking for total exposure or total derobing, you know. But I think it does still have to follow the rules. It has to follow the books. Both of us are not members of the bench. But however, this is commendable. This is to let you know that, in fairness, I think the expertise is reducing little by little. What we mean by expertise reducing, I mean the conflicting expertise, where you have court of coordinate jurisdiction, and you see somebody who will just, you know, submit an application within a few hours. They will just stop an event that another court of coordinate jurisdiction has already given an order to be done. You just see somebody come with another conflicting expertise with the court of coordinate jurisdiction.
And they do this without hearing the parties in the case.
Exactly. They don't even serve the other party. They just took decision. I feel that Justice Kudirat is heading in the right direction with our team, and we can only wish that this will continue to serve as deterrent, which is our call. Our call is not just the punishment. Our call is we should close our eyes and say judiciary is going to be fair. Judiciary is going to be justiciable. Judiciary is going to do the right thing, and we are not perturbed, not because we don't have deep pocket, not because we cannot get an SAN, but because we have a good case, we can argue our case, our lawyers can take this matter to court, and we are sure of victory. And if you are not sure, when you know you don't have a good case, you only try, and you don't have to, you know, go through the back door and get victory when you do not deserve that victory at the court.
So the NJC has also announced a major transparency reform. We're looking at a situation where names of judicial appointees are now going to be published for public scrutiny before confirmation. I'm just thinking in my head that will it matter what the public says, you know, before the NJC decides?
It will. You know, the public can go as far as even submitting documentary evidence against some of these appointees. They can go ahead as going into the history of these appointees. But it is left for NJC to be sure that this is also politically doctored. It is left for NJC to also be sure that this is not a kind of political witch hunt. But I know they have the gravitas, they have the knowledge, you know, bank to look at, okay, let's look at these issues. They do it in some religious bodies when they want to make you a leader, and they will say, okay, look at this person, you know, is there any reason why we should appoint this person? I think judiciary deserves that kind of reform. I think the reform is in order. It's just for us to support it and be sure that it is transparent, it's not one-sided, it's not lopsided. It is about who is qualified to be a judge. That's what we grew up to be. We don't even see judges. We reference them, and we believe that what they say is final.
Is law.
Is law. Exactly. Exactly.
There is the question of the independence of the judiciary, especially looking at politics the way it is in our country. How power is used, especially by governors, and what they do. There's a conversation we're supposed to have, for instance, with a particular stakeholder in Benue State as regards the tribunal ruling on the local government elections. There is what the court says, but there is how politicians even interpret these rulings at times. But how do you think that independence has evolved over time? Would you say that that arm of government is truly independent?
So in this case, we may not entirely blame the judiciary. We should actually blame the implementation authorities, talking about the police. For example, if the judge says that this is what should happen, so amount has been awarded against this person, police should go as far as arresting the person who violates that ruling. And that's what happens when it comes to landlord-tenants issue. You know, when you take your paper and you take it to the police, either the landlord or the tenant who is violating the rule will face the wrath of the law. So this will also happen to politicians. When the court rules against, especially the federal government, it sounds funny to see police say that federal government, you have erred, and the judge has ruled. It is what it is, the law. So we should do everything possible to strengthen the rule of law. We should do everything possible to see the rule of law hold its way in any issue particularly. So the interpretation should be unambiguous. For example, let me delve into the issue of PDP and Labour Party. The problem now is interpretation. In two cases, the Apex Court has said it's an internal party affair. Go and resolve it. Now people are saying, what should we stand on? What is the status quo? Is it what the higher court has, the appeal court has ruled? Is it what the party constitution says? And you see a lot of people playing on it. You can see Abure, insulting the governor of Abia State. But if you look at the book, you might say, okay, the governor of Abia State does not have the constitutional power in the party affairs. But it will tell you that I'm the only sitting governor, and Abure, it seems you're not working in the interest of the party. So I'm speaking for the NEC, which I happen to be a member of. But does he have the support of all the NEC members? Abure will tell you who are those who are NEC members. And Abure will also remind you that these are people who probably use the party as a platform to get into power and know little about the party's constitution. So I see a Supreme Court putting them into what some of these comedians would call piggity biggity, hocus pocus, in a more confused situation. So I want to see a situation where this decision should be unambiguous. This decision should help the party to know the right direction to take. Just like the governor or the suspended governor of Rivers State is saying that, excuse me, Supreme Court has ruled. I have no choice than to implement it. But then it came with some kind of reluctance. It came with some kind of undertone, which has led to the state being under state of emergency. So I want to believe that politicians should be forced, should be made to obey whatever the law says.
And I'm wondering on whose shoulder lies that responsibility, because we had this conversation in the past. There was this particular transportation union, where the leadership was contested first at the industrial court. It got to the Court of Appeal, which was the apex court on that matter. And that decision was not implemented. We spoke with interested stakeholders in that story, and they kept crying and called on Mr. President, called on the police, called on almost everyone. And then you wonder what that means for our democracy if the court gives a particular pronouncement and then the forces of government that have the authority are not backing that statement. So
this is also where NJC comes in. Probably we need to check whether whether there's no conflicting. But if it's a clear case of the higher court taking an unambiguous decision on this matter, I think the implementation authorities, in this case the police and whoever should kick out who should not be in at the secretariat. They should kick them out, and who should be there should be made to go there, because there is a CTC, declaring who should occupy that seat. Yep. And this is where CSOs come in, because they have a role in this democracy. It should be some kind of protest, not definitely have to be sponsored. There should be a call to some rights activists who will take up these issues and say, it is about democracy. It is not really about our self-interest. Even people who believe in these people who are disobeying the authority should speak to them and say, on this matter, you have lost. Go and prepare for the next election in your union to come back. We will, at this part, because, one of the professions that is also embedded in the Constitution is the media. We are recognized as the fourth estate of the realm. We will continue to push this. If there's a CTC, if there is clear court decision, we must follow it to the letter. And trust me, we can't give up on democracy. It's still the best form of government at our disposal.
Let's get some reaction from the Imo State government as to why they initially appointed Ezioku. This is the commissioner, one of the commissioners, saying that the initial appointment was based on credible reports available to them at the time, and that the report had indicated that Mr. Ezioku was the most senior judicial officer not encumbered by unresolved issues. I think that it is good precedent that the Imo State government is saying, you know what, we are taking the recommendation of the NJC. And I think this is sending a big message to other governors that when it comes to the matter of who becomes CJ, the NJC has a say. Exactly.
Yours is to make a recommendation, and if they disapprove it, it stands disapproved. If they approve it, they stand approved. I think where the Imo State government did not do well was going ahead to inaugurate or swear him in. When NJC has said this is not the case, there is no twist to it. The NJC has a final say. If they say, wait till we have our next meeting, you can actually hold on to that. But the good news is they have accepted the NJC recommendation. They've, whatever went on behind the scene, it is the result that we're interested in. And that's what Imo State government has done. And we should give them that kudos. Whatever excuse, whatever alibi they want to bring up, it does not matter. What matters is you have followed the rules. I'd expect that you should know the most senior judge in your state. Do your background check and let us know who the most senior is, and let that person occupy the right position.
It matters, therefore, that the judiciary evolves as not been stained by political influence. That's because good. You hear the NJC say, we give you 7 days to explain to us why you even took this position in the first place. You talked about how beautiful our democracy is. There's a long process of post-election realities that get back to the court. And we saw what played out in 2023, where public sentiment did not align with the position of the court. Do you think that judiciary is under any pressure, to play to that gallery or to prove a point? Because if post-election, the hope gets back to the courts that we have some, credible individuals there who can give justice that aligns with the truth as to what happened at the polls.
I like this, and sadly, I do not expect that anything will change. As long as you are reasoning with your emotion, until you come back to your logic, until you come back to your senses in analyzing issue, you will continue to see things from your own prism. And seeing things from your own prism can never be the only way and the right way. You need to see from a whole lot. And probably that will require you to go and study law. I'm telling you, because the judges are not going to pander towards your emotion. They are going to say the way it is, because trust me, I can imagine the drama in Kano, when the appeal court or the first court, says that the power should return to APC, or APC should continue. People went to the streets, everywhere was, haywire. But when they will go to court, they were not citing the protests on the street. They were not citing the burning of whatever that was going on. They had to cite their logic. This is the reason why we are declared winner. And at the end of the day, they emerged winner. So I don't know what to tell the court. I don't think judiciary is cowed by the noise in the market or by the noise in the crowd. It is for people to do the proper thing. It is, if you think the law is not solid, is not critical enough, do the best you can by lobbying the lawmakers to review our Electoral Act, to look at how things should be done. Otherwise, the judiciary will work by the book.
And that's the conversation we don't have until when is election
Close to the election.
I mean, where we can ask our lawmakers who represent the majority of the Nigerian public that what happened in 2023, how can we make it better? How can we improve on our laws and our procedures? But if we appear in 2027 with the same law, it's still going to give us the same results.
The same cry, yeah. And I think I look at all the issues that were raised, especially the one that has to do with political review, the Electoral Act. I feel some of them were laughable. I feel some of them were strong enough to be reviewed. And I want to believe that they should do the best they can, you know, to also push for President's assent. Otherwise, for example, the one that is quite sensitive, the issue of gender, you know, that seat should be reserved for women and stuff like that. You know, somebody will have to ask, give us countries where this is done. Somebody will have to ask, why should a woman have privilege over a man, you know, in this kind of position? Someone is going to ask, maybe there are justifiable reasons. The number of women is quite low. We have to take this affirmative action for women to get into power.
We have to learn from African countries like Rwanda.
Rwanda voted. They voted
50%.
for these women. These women showed capacity. These women won the election. So it was not served a la carte to the female gender. They worked for it. But our case is quite horrible. You know, looking at how many senators? I think we had 4.
I think about
out of 109.
And then one is suspended for 6 months.
You want us to talk about that?
No. I'm just saying.
So that's to let you know that it is about your action and not really about your gender.
Right.
So those are the things that we'll be looking at. But I think there will be more strong women in the next election. We've had Senator Remy, who is now the First Lady. But I sincerely believe that the advocacy shouldn't be, the voices shouldn't be drowned. They should continue the advocacy. And trust me, if I see a capable woman and a woman and a capable man, I would definitely go for the woman.
We'll find time to talk about the factors that have kept the women away from winning elections, which I believe is very obvious. I don't think that our political system is wired in such a way that allows the women folk to have the same number of seats at the table, and that's why some are saying we might have to give them a quota system that can boost the number for now. But we'll talk about that subsequently. Kadula Den, the executive editor, TVC News. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Always a pleasure, FM.
That's our show today.